Just when you thought you didn't have it, they go ahead and totally redeem themselves. Welcome to Fantasy Football, brought to you by Norton, because every click matters. I'm Shehadi, alongside senior fantasy football writer Jamey Eisenberg. A tough task for the Titans. Slow down Andre Johnson, Matt Schaub, not so much at all.
Yeah, who would have thought that would have happened, Lauren? I mean, you look at the way that those guys played in Week 1 against the Jets. Maybe it's the Jets after the way they shut down the Patriots, but I think you look at the Titans' pass defense, not looking good at all right now after what the Texans did. You look at what Matt Schaub, Andre Johnson produced in Week 2 after dismal Week 1 performances. Schaub, we had him as a sit and start him and sit him, and he comes out and plays like the best quarterback in football, 357 and 4 touchdowns. Andre Johnson, you're never going to sit him, but he looks the way that you expect him to play. Can this continue? We'll find out, but definitely good to see them play at this level.
What about another guy with the last name of Johnson, Chris Johnson? An incredible performance. He couldn't beat the Texans all on his own, but he tried.
He almost did. You know, that was just an absolutely fantastic performance. This is what you expect when you face a poor run defense like Houston, and he did a really good job against them last year. Now, we expected Lindell White to also play well, but it was hard when Johnson's taking those 90-yard touchdown runs and not giving Lindell White the opportunity to get in there. So this is what you expect when you draft Chris Johnson in the first round. I don't know if you can count on this on a weekly basis, but Lauren, you know, when you look at the way that Chris Johnson plays, this is why you draft him early, and this is what you hope for going forward.
What do you hope for from Frank Gore in Week 3? Because Week 2, I tell you what, 207 yards, runs of 79 and a career-high 80 yards, a lot different than a week ago.
Yeah, he still scored 2 touchdowns in the first week, but didn't have the rushing yards to go with it. But, you know, when you look at the total from Week 1 and Week 2, looks pretty impressive. Now, Week 3, he's going to be facing Minnesota, so that's an opportunity for him maybe to slow down just a little bit. But the way he's playing right now, you really can't bench a guy like Frank Gore. Absolutely fantastic. Good to see him get going a little bit. This is the type of offense Mike Singletary wants to run. He wants to feed the ball to Frank Gore, let him do his thing. Seattle's run defense really has to improve going forward.
Jamey, I want to talk about this next list and focus in on Carson Palmer. A good game for him in Week 2. Still, though, when you look at that stat of 4 interceptions throughout 2 games, do you look at that and worry as a fantasy owner?
A little bit, but when you see the 4 touchdowns, he threw for 3, ran for 1. Okay. That's what you like to see. Kurt Warner bounces back, has a really efficient game, 24 of 26 with 2 touchdowns. Jay Cutler finally looks like a franchise quarterback. Steve Smith, I know a lot of people were worried about the way Jake Delhomme played in the playoff game last year, in the first game this year, comes back in the second game against Atlanta, 300 yards. Steve Smith really benefits from it. You should never bench Steve Smith going forward. I know we told you to, but that was mostly played on Jake Delhomme, and I think you'll see him bounce back. The biggest surprise on that list, though, was Deshaun Jackson, because poor Week 1 with Donovan McNabb. Take Donovan McNabb away, and Jackson has a big game. So we'll see what happens in Week 3. Right now, it doesn't look like McNabb's going to play at this point, but even if it's Michael Vick or Kevin Cobb, it looks like they'll get Jackson the ball. You
know, Jamey, you mentioned a surprise. Was Matt Forte a surprise in Week 2? Again, do you want your money back if you're a fantasy owner or not so much? Not just yet.
Let's keep in mind, he's facing Seattle in Week 3, which Frank Gore just ran all over. So when you talk about Matt Forte and you look at some of these guys on the list of players who have played poorly, and we're talking about guys like Forte, Steve Slayton, Brandon Marshall. Marshall really was a surprise. You know, Dave Richard was really high on Marshall with that matchup against the Browns. He struggled. Steve Slayton, obviously the passing game was clicking for the Texans. He wasn't able to get going. And Matt Forte, listen, we expected Matt Forte to struggle in the first week. We didn't expect him to struggle in the first week. The second week, we expected him to struggle against Pittsburgh. But going to Week 3, again, faces Seattle, we'll see him play well. This is when we'll see Matt Forte start to get going.
He's on my team, so I hope you're right. All right, let's look at this next list. We're talking about injuries. Jamey, is it here we go again with Brian Westbrook or what?
I hope not. And if you have the opportunity to pick up LaShawn McCoy, or if you have him on your team, this could be a great week because Kansas City coming to town. Matt Hasselbeck, like Donovan McNabb, bruises his ribs, so we'll see what happens there. The biggest injury, though, on this list could be, though, to Marion Barber dealing with a quad injury. If you have the opportunity to pick up Tashard Choice, that's the guy that will benefit. We know Felix Jones is going to get carries if Barber's not in there. Barber had a great game against the Giants, really did well in that Sunday night game. But if he's out, then Tashard Choice will now be the number 2 guy there with Felix Jones. Keep an eye, though, if you're looking for some waiver wire moves. Well, I know we'll get into this, or at least you and Dave will get into this, but the Giants receiver, Steve Smith, Mario Manningham, played great in that game.
We'll keep an eye on that. While we're eating dinner or making dinner tonight, guess where he's going to be? Colts Dolphins. What do you think?
I'm looking to see how Pierre Garçon's going to do. That's an interesting player for the Colts with Anthony Gonzalez out, but we know Peyton Manning, Dallas Clark, Reggie Wayne, and then Ronnie Brown on the other side of the ball for the Dolphins.
He will be there on Monday, and guess where he'll be on Sunday? Fantasy Football Today, every Sunday, 11 o'clock for 2 hours. All the fantasy advice you could ever want. Thanks for watching this. Brought to you by Norton, because every click matters, and we'll see you soon.